Welcome, my family. Before we jump in, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. I'd also love to know, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Drop your answers and any suggestions in the comments, and I might give you a shout out at the end of my next video. Thanks for being here and for all your amazing support.
I was 26, driving west through Texas in late July when the heat started to hum. You don't notice it right away, that sound the desert makes when it's watching you. But by the time you do, it's already too late. I'd been on the road since morning, trying to outrun the silence left behind by my mother's death. Her house, her oxygen tanks, the smell of bleach. I couldn't breathe in that town anymore. So I packed up and drove. By midnight, my car was the only light for miles. The road stretched straight and black, endless. My GPS said I was near mile marker 183. Then the air changed. The static on the radio rose, hissing and whispering, cutting through every song. And underneath the noise, a voice said my name, Marissa. I turned the radio off, heart pounding. The air inside the car felt too thick. My headlights caught a flickering neon sign up ahead. Vacancy. A rundown roadside motel, 1 story, 15 rooms, all with yellowed curtains that didn't move. I pulled in. The clerk was sitting behind the counter, a thin man with a smile too wide and eyes that looked fogged over, like glass left out in the rain. He said, "Late night," and slid a brass key across the counter. Room 6. "Stay inside after dark," he added. "The road likes to keep what it finds." I laughed nervously. "Okay, that's some local joke?" He didn't blink. "You'll see." The key was heavy, old. When I looked at it, the number 6 seemed carved too deep, like it wanted out of the metal. The room smelled like cigarettes and something sweet that had gone bad. Faded curtains, buzzing light, a mirror cracked right down the middle. I showered and tried to sleep, but the air conditioner rattled with static. Not mechanical noise, static, like the radio again. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow taps on the window. I froze. Outside, the parking lot was empty. The air shimmered with heat. Every car sat perfectly still. Engines running, headlights off. Dozens of them. All pointed at the motel. All idling in silence. My hand shook when I pulled the curtain shut. The room phone rang. "Hello?" No answer. Just the same static from the radio. And beneath it, my mother's voice, soft, fragile. "Come home, Rissa." I slammed the phone down. The hum from outside grew louder. Then suddenly, silence. The next thing I remember is waking up to daylight. The tars were gone. But when I went to the front desk to check out, the clerk was still there, smiling the same empty smile. "Sleep well?" "Not really. Weird night." He nodded. "You'll get used to it." I drove off that morning. For a while, everything felt normal again, just desert, sunlight, and miles of asphalt. But then I passed mile marker 183. Again. I told myself I'd miscounted. Then I passed it again. The third time, I stopped the car, got out, walked to the sign. The metal was cold. Too cold for July. When I looked back, the motel was behind me again. The same sign, the same clerk standing outside, waving. I drove faster, 90 miles an hour, then 100. But the desert didn't move. The sky didn't change. Mile marker 183 kept flashing past. Each time the road stretched longer, the air thicker, and my reflection in the rearview mirror started to look less like me. By sunset, I'd passed the sign 11 times. When darkness fell, I had no choice. I pulled into the motel again. The clerk greeted me with the same smile. "I told you," he said. "Some roads don't let go." "I was just here," I whispered. He pushed the brass key toward me. The number 6 looked deeper now, almost hollowed through. "This is your room," he said. "It's always been your room." Inside, the air was colder. The mirror was still cracked, but this time something moved in it. My reflection, sitting on the bed before I'd even entered. She looked up at me. Same hair, same clothes, same tired eyes. "I shouldn't have stopped," she whispered. Then the lights went out. When they came back, she was gone, but the bed was still warm. The phone rang again. "Who is this?" I snapped. Static. Then a voice I didn't recognize. "You're almost ready." "Ready for what?" "To stay." The Hume outside started again. That same vibrating, slow rhythm. I looked through the window. The cars were back, idling. But this time I could see inside them. People. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. All staring straight ahead, faces expressionless, eyes wide. And in the glow of their headlights, I saw myself standing outside one of the cars, watching the motel. I blinked, and she was gone. I grabbed my keys and ran to my car. The clerk was standing by the office door, smiling wider than ever. "Leaving again?" "Go to hell," I spat. He chuckled softly. "You already did." I floored the gas pedal, tires screaming. Mile marker 183 flashed past once, twice. Then through the radio static, the same voice whispered, "You'll come back." I drove until my fuel light came on. When I finally slowed down, the desert around me shifted, the road curling like a black ribbon, looping ahead and behind. No turnoffs, no exits, just endless, straight. And then there it was again. The vacancy sign, the clerk, the key. The same damned room. Now I don't try to leave anymore. The loop resets every night. Sometimes the sky burns red instead of blue. Sometimes the cars in the lot hum like engines without people. Once I tried to burn the room. The fire caught, but when the smoke cleared, the walls were untouched and my reflection in the mirror was smiling. The radio keeps turning on by itself. Same song every time, a woman's voice humming something soft and low, almost like a lullaby. Sometimes I think it's my mother. Sometimes I think it's the road itself. The clerk still greets me every morning. "Room 6, right?" he says. And I nod, because that's the only room there is. Every night at 3 a.m., there's a knock at the window, 3 times. When I look outside, I see the same thing. My car, engine idling, headlights dim, and someone sitting inside. Me. She smiles when I look at her, lips mouthing something I can't hear over the hum. Then slowly she raises her hand and knocks 3 times. I don't fight it anymore. The road doesn't want me dead. It wants me back. So I keep driving, looping, sleeping, and waking. Each morning, the clerk hands me the key, and I thank him. Each night, the cars return, waiting with engines purring, headlights breathing. And when I catch my reflection now, she doesn't look scared. She looks home. Because some roads don't take you anywhere. They take you back. And once you're on them, you never leave.
A short and quick announcement here. If you're still listening and enjoying the story, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. It truly helps more than you know. And if you can, share it with your friends and family so our little horror family can keep growing. I was 26 when I took the night shift at Desert Sun Fuel and Market, a dusty little station just outside Fort Stockton, Texas. It wasn't much. 2 pumps, 1 broken soda machine, and a single strip of flickering lights that buzzed like they were dying. I took the job because I wanted to disappear. After what happened with him, the bruises, the screaming, the way I left without looking back, I thought maybe the desert could swallow me up quietly. For the first few nights, it almost worked. The silence out here had a weight to it. No cars, no crickets, just the wind dragging sand over the road like a soft, constant whisper. But on the 5th night, I heard it. The hum. It came from the vents above the counter. Low, steady, pulsing like a heartbeat. At first I thought it was a generator or the fridge compressor, but when I unplugged everything, it didn't stop. It got louder. A sound that wasn't just heard, it vibrated through me. The next night it started again, around 2 a.m. The air was still, too warm for comfort. The hum rolled under my skin, making the hairs on my arms rise. I could almost feel it breathing through the walls. That's when the first knock came. 3 dull, deliberate hits from beneath the floor. I froze. The noise wasn't random. It had rhythm, like someone answering back. An old trucker came in just after that. He smelled like diesel and desert dust. When he saw my face, he frowned. "You heard it, didn't you?" he said. "What?" "The hum." He rubbed his jaw, eyes flicking to the floor. "You don't answer it, girl. That's what they all did wrong." "All who?" He didn't reply, just stared out toward the highway. Nobody lasts out here long once they start hearing it. When he left, I found muddy boot prints across the floor. 3 of them, side by side, stopping right over the vent. The hum came back stronger the next night. It filled the store, vibrating the cans on the shelves. It had a pulse now, slow, deliberate, and wet, like someone dragging their breath through water. I turned the radio on for noise, but every channel was static. And then, through the static, came a whisper. Cassidy. My name. I turned the radio off. The hum kept saying it. Cassidy. Cassidy. I screamed and threw the radio against the wall. It went silent. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 times, beneath my feet. I ran outside into the desert wind. The stars looked sharp enough to cut me. My car sat by the pumps, its windows fogged from the inside. When I yanked the door open, a wave of heat rolled out, and I swear I heard breathing, long, slow, steady, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. I drove to the nearest motel and didn't come back for 2 days. When I finally did, the night manager was waiting by the pumps. An older woman with cracked lips and tired eyes. "You're late," she said. "Don't stay past 3. I wanted to ask how she knew, but her look told me not to. I lasted another week. Every night the hum got louder. It followed me home, in my car, in the shower, even when I tried to sleep. Sometimes it sounded like it was inside my chest, matching my heartbeat. The woman came back one night just before closing. She stood in the doorway, dust swirling around her feet. "You can still leave," she said softly. "Once it knows your name, you don't get another chance." Then she was gone again. No car, no sound, nothing. But her cup of coffee still steaming on the counter. At exactly 3 a.m., the lights cut out. The hum turned into a breath. Long, wet, dragging. Then came the knocks, 3 of them, harder this time, right below where I stood. The ground shuddered, the air filled with the smell of metal and something rotten.
"Cassidy." The voice came from under the floor. "Cassidy, let me in." I stumbled back, heart hammering. "Who are you?" The answer was a sound like someone laughing underwater. Then silence. I ran for the door, but it wouldn't move. The handle was cold and slick, like it was sweating. The hum swelled again, vibrating the walls, shaking the glass. I fell to my knees, clutching my head. When I looked up, I saw her, the woman, standing outside the window, but she wasn't human anymore. Her eyes were hollow, mouth wide open, and the same hum poured out of her chest, like a radio caught between stations. She lifted her hand and tapped on the glass 3 times, then whispered, "You stayed past 3." The lights exploded. When I woke up, it was dawn. My car was outside. The store was untouched, like nothing happened. But the radio in my car turned on by itself when I started the engine. The same hum. The same voice. "You stayed. Now it stays with you." I drove until I hit El Paso. Didn't stop for hours. Slept in a motel with the lights on. Told myself it was over. But that night, when I laid down, I heard it again. The hum. Soft. Patient. Right beside my ear. I turned the light on. Nothing there. I checked the floor, and that's when it knocked. 3 times. Under the bed. I froze. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. Then came the whisper. Faint. Almost kind. "Cassidy." I left everything behind that night. My car, my bags, my past. Now I keep moving. Cheap motels, random towns, never staying anywhere longer than a few days. But the hum always finds me. Sometimes it's in the air conditioner, sometimes the radio, sometimes it's just the pulse in my ears when the world goes quiet. I don't listen to music anymore. Silence is worse, but music only makes it louder. And sometimes, right before I fall asleep, it speaks. "Don't run. We already share the same breath." Last night, it got bolder. 3 knocks against the frame of my bed. Then, silence. I tried not to breathe, but it didn't matter. The hum was inside me now. I could feel it, moving slow like something crawling through my lungs. And when I whispered, "Please stop," it whispered back, perfectly calm, perfectly still. "Too late. You stayed." That was a week ago. I'm still driving west, chasing daylight, but the hum keeps pace. When the car engine idles, I can hear it syncing with the motor. 1 long inhale, 1 long exhale. And sometimes it even hums my name. Cassidy. Ward. Like a song the desert wrote just for me. And last night, in the reflection of my rearview mirror, I saw her again. The pale woman, half dust, half shadow, sitting quietly in the back seat, mouthing the rhythm of the hum. I didn't look back. I just kept driving. Because the truth is, the hum doesn't want to kill me. It just wants to stay. And now, it hums when I do.
I was 24 when I came back to Lockhart, Texas, the so-called barbecue capital of the world, the place that smelled like smoked meat and regret. The Chisholm Trail Barbecue Festival had just started, and the whole town was crawling with people. Country music, beer, laughter, the kind of noise that tries to hide the ghosts under it. I told everyone I was back to visit family. Truth was, I came because I couldn't stop dreaming about my brother, about the night he died at the rodeo, under those same fairground lights. The crowd screaming, the dust rising, his name echoing through the speakers just before it all went wrong. Every dream ended the same way. The sound of breathing. Not mine, not his. Something else, slow and thick, like smoke that didn't want to rise. I thought maybe going back, seeing the festival again, might give me peace. It didn't. When I pulled into town, the air hit me like a wall. Sweet, sharp, greasy. It smelled like burning wood, molasses, and meat that had been smoking for days. It should have been comforting. Instead, it felt wrong. I met up with my brother's old girlfriend, Aubrey. She'd aged like the town, sun-bleached and brittle. She hugged me too tightly, eyes glassy with nostalgia. "Marco's pit still down by the river?" I asked, pretending I didn't know the answer. She looked away. "You shouldn't go down there after dark." "Why not?" She hesitated, then said softly, "They say it still breathes." That night, I wandered through the festival, the way I used to with Marco. The music was too loud, the lights too bright. People laughed with mouths stained red from sauce, teeth slick with grease. Judges sat at long wooden tables, faces glistening, fingers shiny. They didn't eat, they just fed, smearing, tasting, humming low and satisfied. It was obscene. And that smell, the sweet, acid smoke, it wrapped around me like syrup. My stomach turned. Somewhere, a fiddler's string snapped, the sound sharp and ugly. The silence that followed was worse. Aubrey appeared beside me, her eyes unfocused. "They're looking for the lost ones," she whispered. I wanted to ask her what she meant, but she was already walking toward the riverbank, her movements too smooth, too sure. When I called after her, she didn't even flinch. I tried to find Marco's pit, the one he'd built with our father years ago. It had been part of the old festival tradition. Dig deep, feed the fire, let it burn all night. Only now, no one talked about it. The official pits were all in town. The one by the river wasn't on any map. But I could smell it. That same sweet, heavy smoke. The riverbank was quiet, the festival lights far behind me. The ground was soft with ash, and the air shimmered with heat, though the fire wasn't visible. Then I saw them. A circle of figures, motionless in the glow. Some were wearing aprons, some dresses, all facing inward, toward a pit in the earth. Aubrey was there. And Marco. He looked just like he did the last time I saw him, except his skin was slick with something wet, and his mouth hung open, exhaling pale smoke. "Aubrey," I whispered. She turned her head slowly. Her eyes were milky, unfocused. She smiled, lips trembling. "You came back," she said, voice syrupy and strange. "What is this?" "The pit's hungry." The figures began to sway. Their movements weren't quite human, too synchronized, too slow. The fire inside the pit pulsed red and gold, but it didn't crackle. It breathed. The air around it moved in and out like lungs, and when I looked closer, I saw faces in the coals, mouths stretched wide, teeth like black stones. Marco's chest rose and fell in rhythm with the pit. Smoke poured from his mouth, curling into the air, carrying that sickly sweet smell. I stepped back, my foot crunching on dry leaves. Every head turned toward me. Aubrey's lips parted, and a clicking sound came from her throat, fast, rhythmic, wrong, like a tongue tapping bone. The others joined in, all clicking in unison, a chorus of tongueless mouths. The smoke thickened, crawling along the ground toward me. "Marco, please," I choked. "Come with me." His voice was soft, almost kind. "It needs you, Leia. It's been waiting." "For what?" "For what you owe." The ground shuddered, the pit exhaled, and the air around me went hot enough to burn. I ran. The forest was a blur of red light and shadows. The clicking followed me, soft first, then louder, faster. The smoke wasn't behind me anymore. It was around me. When I reached my car, the keys were gone. The windshield was fogged from the inside, though I hadn't been there long enough to breathe. Something tapped the glass. 3 times. I screamed and stumbled backward, sprinting down the road until the glow from the pit disappeared. When I came back at sunrise, the riverbank was empty. No pit. No circle. No smoke. Just scorched earth and the faint smell of sugar and meat. The sheriff found me standing there, shoes half melted. He asked what happened. I said I'd fallen asleep by the river. He nodded, like he'd heard it before. "They always say that," he murmured. "Who?" He just stared down at the ground. "Don't go looking for the pit again. It finds you when it's ready." Aubrey and Marco were never seen again. Their house was empty, beds unmade, TV still on, car parked in the driveway, like they'd just stepped out for a smoke and never came back. The town didn't talk about it. By the next festival, their names were already forgotten. But not by me. Weeks later, I was driving out of town when the smell hit me again, that syrupy, burnt sweetness. I rolled the window up, but it was inside the car already. Then, faintly, under the hum of the road, I heard it. Clicking. Soft, deliberate. From the back seat. I didn't look. Now, every time I pass a barbecue joint, the smoke hits me wrong. It's not food anymore. It's hunger. Some nights I wake to that same smell, heavy and sweet. I swear I can hear the faintest sound of crackling fire, but it's too steady, too alive. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I see Marco, standing at the edge of that glowing pit, his mouth open, smoke pouring out. He's not breathing. The pit is breathing through him. The last time I dreamed of him, he whispered, "It's still hungry." And when I woke up, the air in my room smelled like mesquite and ash. My throat burned like I'd swallowed smoke. I don't go back to Lockhart anymore. I don't go near fairs or festivals or anywhere that smells like burning meat. But sometimes when I drive through small Texas towns, I see pits behind diners, glowing red, too red, faces around them, feeding instead of eating. And once, outside a roadside smokehouse near Luling, I swear I saw Aubrey behind the counter. Her eyes milky, her smile too wide. She leaned forward, hands black with soot, and whispered, "Stay for supper, Leia. The pit misses you." I drove all night, windows down, but the air didn't clear. The smoke followed me, curling through the vents, clinging to my hair, my clothes, my skin. And now, when I close my eyes, I still hear it. That soft, clicking sound from the dark. It's been years since that night, but I know the truth now. The pit never stops burning. It just waits. And somewhere, under all that glowing coal and sweet smoke, it's still breathing.
I was 27 when I started the night shift at the Lone Spur Gas and Diner off Highway 90, a stretch of desert so empty it looked like the end of the world. People called it the last stop before nowhere. I'd taken the job because I needed to vanish. Bad debts, wrong people, a string of mistakes I didn't have the courage to face. The manager didn't ask questions, just handed me a set of keys, a mop, and a warning. Don't stay after 3. The desert keeps count. I laughed, thinking he meant coyotes or truckers, but the look he gave me wasn't a joke. The Lone Spur sat alone between Del Rio and Forever, a diner attached to a pair of gas pumps, its neon sign flickering like a dying heartbeat. Every night I'd listen to the hum of the coolers, the whisper of wind sneaking through the vents, and tell myself this was peace. Until the first night, it knocked. It came from under the floor, 3 dull thuds, deep and hollow. I paused, half asleep at the counter. Probably pipes, I muttered. But the building didn't have any plumbing underneath. The old man who dropped off supplies earlier had mentioned it once, chuckling. "You're standing on sand and bones, not pipes." When I bent down, pressing my ear to the tiles, I swore I heard a faint hum rising from below, low and steady, like something breathing, slow and patient. I stood up quick. The clock said 2:47 a.m. By 3, the hum had stopped. The storm had rolled through, though not a single drop of rain fell. The wind carried dust so fine it glittered under the floodlights. The hum returned, faint at first, then louder. It wasn't mechanical. It had rhythm, like something shifting its weight beneath the diner. When I walked past the bathroom mirror, I caught a flicker of movement behind me, a shape, tall and still, outlined in dust. When I turned, it was gone. The payphone near the door rang once, then again. By the 3rd ring, my chest was pounding. Nobody knew this number. I picked up. Static. Then soft breathing. Long, patient, waiting for me to speak. I hung up. The phone rang again. I ripped the cord out of the wall. It kept ringing. The lights above me flickered. The hum under the floor deepened, vibrating through my shoes. I left the radio on after that. Silence felt dangerous. A woman came in just before midnight. Long hair, jacket dusted gray from the wind. She ordered coffee and stared at the black window beside her booth. "You knew?" she asked. "A couple of weeks," I said. "You from around here?" She shook her head. "Nobody's from here." She glanced toward the floor. "You hear it yet?" "Hear what?" "The count." I tried to smile. "You mean the wind?" She looked at me, and her eyes were the color of dry bone. "No, the desert keeps count. 3 knocks means it found another one." I wanted to ask what that meant, but she slid her cup away, untouched. "Don't answer when it calls," she whispered. When I turned to refill the pot, she was gone. Not left. Gone. No door, no sound, no prints in the dust, just your coffee cup, still steaming. The hum started before midnight. It wasn't under the floor anymore. It was in the walls. The fluorescent lights flickered in rhythm with it, low, high, low again, a pulse that matched my heartbeat. I tried to distract myself by cleaning the counter. When I looked into the reflection of the metal napkin holder, I froze. Something stood behind me, tall, black, featureless, made of shifting dust. I turned. Nothing. But the shape and the reflection stayed even after I turned away. That's when the payphone rang again. I didn't touch it. The hum grew louder, closer, like a voice buried deep under sand. I could feel it in my teeth. Then 3 knocks. Right beneath my feet. I ran to the door. The wind outside was screaming, carrying sand like knives. When I stepped out, the air was alive, shimmering, moving, forming into shapes I couldn't understand. Out past the pump, something stood in the headlights of a parked rig. A man,
or what was left of one. Skin blackened, lips gone, mouth open too wide. He didn't move. He just waited. The hum crawled through the air, filling my ears, my head, my chest. I stumbled back inside and slammed the door. Through the glass, the figure tilted its head slowly, then lifted one hand and knocked 3 times. The glass didn't shatter. It flexed, bending inward like it was breathing. I fell to my knees, covering my ears. "Stop!" I screamed. The lights went out. The hum stopped. The only sound was my heartbeat and a faint ringing in my left ear. When I stood up, the diner was empty again. The figure was gone. I didn't want to come back, but I had nowhere else to go. By midnight, I realized the hum never stopped anymore. It followed me in the car, the shower, my dreams. The payphone was gone when I arrived, just a hole in the wall, wires black with soot. There was a note taped to the counter, written in block letters. "Don't count. Don't stay." The clock above the register ticked louder than it should have. The second hand jerked back every few beats, like it was fighting something invisible. At 2:59, the lights dimmed. At 3, the hum rose from the vents, deep and vibrating, shaking the ceiling tiles. I grabbed my jacket, ready to leave, but the door wouldn't budge. The handle was freezing cold, slick with something like oil. In the mirror behind the counter, I saw the reflection of the diner and me, still standing there. But the other me was smiling. The hum climbed higher, turning into a shriek. The lights burst. Glass rained down, cutting my arms. Then silence. I turned. The desert outside was gone. No sand, no pumps, no sky, just endless black. And in the reflection behind me, I saw the figure, standing inches away, hand reaching toward my shoulder. When it touched me, the world tilted. The floor gave way. I fell into dark. I woke up behind the counter, daylight spilling through the blinds. The diner was quiet, empty. My car was outside, keys in the ignition, door open. I thought maybe I'd dreamed it until I saw the footprints. Long, deep, leading from the back door to the payphone hole. 3 sets of prints, each ending at the wall. The manager never showed up again. The next guy they sent didn't last a week. Now I'm the only one left. The hum never really stops. I hear it through the walls, the ceiling, the floor. It knows my name. Sometimes the phone rings again, even though it's gone. When I pick it up, I hear my own voice saying, "Stay, please stay." And every night, at 3 sharp, something knocks beneath the floor. 3 times. I've tried to leave, but every road out circles back here. So I keep wiping the counter, refilling the coffee that no one drinks, pretending the desert outside isn't watching through the glass. The hum grows louder each night, the air gets thicker, the dust moves when I breathe. Sometimes I see shapes in it, arms, faces, outlines of those who came before me. I think the desert's been counting all along, and when it reaches the right number, maybe it stops. Maybe it doesn't. I used to think I was hiding from my debts out here. Now I know better. The desert doesn't forget what it's owed, and neither does the lone spur. It hums. It watches. It waits. and it wants me to stay.
When I inherited my family's ranch near the Panhandle border, I didn't feel proud. I felt trapped. The land was old, too old, the kind that looked like it remembered pain. They called it the Callahan spread. Over 200 acres of dead grass, leaning fences, and a house that sighed when the wind changed. My great-grandfather had built it. My father had buried himself in it, and now it was mine. I planned to sell it the second I signed the papers, but the minute I stepped onto that property, I realized the place wasn't done with us yet. The first day, the air felt wrong. It wasn't the heat, it was thickness. Every breath came heavy, like the dust didn't want to let me go. The main house sat in the middle of nothing, windows clouded with grime, roof sagging like a broken spine. Out back was the barn, big enough to hold 100 cattle, though the pens had been empty for decades. Patrick, the ranch manager, met me at the gate. He was thin, sunburned, and nervous. "You're Eleanor?" he asked, rubbing the brim of his hat. "Yeah." He hesitated. "Ma'am, I'll stay to help you go through the place, but I don't come near the barn after dark. Not anymore." "Why not?" "The air's too thick," he said, and wouldn't look me in the eye. The barn door was chained shut, though I didn't know why. The padlock looked new. Inside, I expected to find old equipment, maybe a few bones from forgotten cattle. Instead, I found dust, layers of it, inches deep, untouched for years. And tracks. 3 long parallel grooves cutting across the floor, as though something heavy had been dragged through the dirt. Patrick wouldn't cross the threshold. "Best not to disturb what's sleeping," he muttered. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every window rattled, though there was no wind. The silence between each sound felt alive. Then I heard it. Low, guttural, the unmistakable sound of cattle lowing. But there had been no cattle on this ranch since before I was born. It started the next night. A dry, scraping noise. At first I thought it was branches against the siding, but it moved, slow and deliberate, along the walls inside the house. 3 quick scrapes, then silence. I stood in the hallway holding my breath. The sound came again, closer this time, just outside my bedroom door. I opened it fast, hoping to catch whatever it was. Nothing. Only dust floating through the beam of my flashlight. Patrick showed up early the next morning, pale as chalk. "Did you hear it?" he asked. "Hear what?" I lied. He swallowed. "The herd. They come back sometimes. You'll hear 'em before you see 'em." "What are you talking about?" He looked toward the barn. "They were wronged, Miss Eleanor. Them and the men who worked 'em. The land remembers what we'd done." I didn't believe in ghosts, but something about this place made me want to. In the attic, I found a chest buried under old quilts. Inside were ledgers, branding irons, and a journal belonging to my great-grandfather. Most of it was business talk, numbers, head counts, weather reports, until the last few pages. He wrote about the men who quit, the unpaid hands, and the herd that never rested. He confessed to overworking the ranch hands, starving them through drought years, and slaughtering weak cattle to save feed, sometimes even feeding the remains to the dogs and the rest of the herd. His last entry was short, written in shaky hand. "They don't forgive. The air's thick because they're still breathing it." That night, I woke to the sound of hooves. Slow, heavy, moving around the house.
then 3 scrapes against the outside wall. And a whisper, "It was always yours to carry." I thought I was losing my mind. I went to Patrick's quarters before sunrise. His lights were on, the door was open. Inside, he'd packed everything. His boots, his Bible, his whiskey. "You're leaving?" I asked. He nodded, eyes wide and glassy. "You should too." "What happened, Patrick?" He hesitated, then said, "They showed me what your kin did. The barn's full of 'em. Hands, beasts, all mixed up. The ground don't rot what's cursed." He got in his truck and drove away without another word. I was alone. By dusk, I couldn't stand the sound anymore, the scraping, the whispering, the lowing that came from nowhere. I took a crowbar and walked to the barn. The padlock snapped easily. The air that came out was thick, heavy with the smell of rot and iron. The light from my flashlight caught something on the floor, a dozen wooden stakes driven into the dirt, each with something tied to it. Bones, human and animal, intertwined, some still wearing bits of denim, others with horns and hooves attached like grotesque trophies. The walls were covered in carvings, brands, names, tally marks, and written over and over again in black ash, "It was always yours to carry." The lowing started again, deep, rumbling, all around me. Then the floor shifted. Something under the dirt moved. I dropped the flashlight. The beam flickered across the ground, catching glimpses of pale shapes pushing upward. Hands made of dust, faces like melted wax. Whispers filled the air, dozens of voices blending into one. "You can't sell what was bought in blood." I ran. When I reached the porch, the whispering followed me, softer now, almost tender. Inside, every picture frame on the wall had turned face down. The air smelled like dirt and sweat. The kitchen window was open, curtains fluttering though there was no wind. On the table sat my great-grandfather's branding iron, still hot. I didn't touch it, but on the wall above it, a shadow was moving. The outline of a man with a hat and a rope, and behind him, something larger, something that moved like a herd, but slower, heavier. I backed away until I hit the hallway mirror. My reflection wasn't alone. A dozen faces pressed against the glass from the inside. Men, cattle, and something between. All whispering, "It was always yours." Then the mirror cracked. I left the house before sunrise, or tried to. The truck wouldn't start. The air was too still, the sky too pale. Even the birds were gone. When I looked toward the barn, the door was wide open. From inside came the sound of hooves, hundreds of them. But there were no cattle left to make that sound. Then the ground beneath my boots began to vibrate, faint, but growing stronger. The lowing rose into a scream, part animal, part human. And through the heat haze, I saw them. Figures walking out of the barn, translucent, covered in dust and light, faces sunken and eyes black. Some wore torn work clothes, others had horns, tails, or hooves. The herd ghost. They didn't rush me. They just walked slowly, together, like a tide rolling in. Their voices merged into one rasping whisper. "It was always yours to carry." The last thing I saw, before I ran, was my great-grandfather standing among them, smiling, with no eyes.
I was 35 when I took the security job out in the Permian Basin, a graveyard of rusted metal and dying rigs. They called it the Darwin site, a decommissioned oil field about 30 miles west of Odessa. It stretched for miles, skeletal derricks against a flat, dead sky. I was told to stay overnight, keep watch, make sure the vandals and scrap thieves stayed away. That was fine by me. I didn't want people, not after what I'd done. I'd stolen almost 200 grand from my family's construction company to pay off gambling debts I'd promised didn't exist. I buried what was left in a shallow grave behind a storage lot near San Angelo. My father called it betrayal. My mother called it sickness. I called it survival. When I got the night job, I told myself the isolation would help me think, help me forget. It didn't. The first thing I noticed about the field was the smell. Hot metal, sulfur, and something else. Thick, sharp, like blood left too long in the sun. The foreman, a woman named Eliza, handed me a flashlight and a binder of safety rules I didn't read. "Don't wander past the main derrick," she said. "If you hear the ground creak, don't stand still. Move." "Why?" I asked. She smirked. "Because this land doesn't like to hold still either." She left before sunset, her taillight shrinking into the desert haze. By the time darkness settled, I was alone. Just me, the trailer, and the wind. Around midnight, I stepped outside with my flashlight. The silence was too big. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing inside my head. The main derrick stood about 50 yards away, a jagged skeleton black against the moon. It looked wrong, like something alive pretending to be dead. The wind shifted and the smell hit me again. Hot metal, sulfur, and something else. Thick, sharp, like blood left too long in the sun. Then came the noise. A low groan, deep and hollow, rising from the ground. It sounded like metal under strain, but the derrick wasn't moving. The earth was. For a moment, it felt like something massive was rolling just below the surface. Then it stopped. I told myself it was just pressure or the pipes settling. I went back inside, shut the door, and turned up the radio. But through the static, I heard it. A faint, wet whisper, sliding between the frequencies. The ground is hungry. The next night, the smell got worse. It poured through the vents in the trailer, oily, hot, choking. I went out to check the tanks, but the gauges all read 0. The pumps hadn't worked in years. Still, the ground beneath my boots was warm. A single footprint stained the sand near the derrick. Black, glossy, like it had been burned into the earth. When I crouched down, the ground trembled, a soft vibration running up through my knees. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But when I turned back, there was someone standing by the derrick. Tall, motionless. The light from my flashlight bent around him. His skin was dark and dripping like he'd been dipped in oil. No eyes, no face, just a shape, slick and shining, breathing slow. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the light. "Who's there?" No answer. Only the creak of the derrick above him, as if something deep below was pulling at strings. I blanked, and he was gone. By the third night, the calls started. The trailer phone rang at exactly 2 a.m. Sharp, piercing, impossible. The line wasn't even connected, I had checked. When I answered, all I heard was a bubbling sound like boiling tar. Then, underneath it, a voice, distorted, drowning, thick with oil. "You buried it." My stomach turned cold. "Who is this?" The bubbling grew louder. Then the line went dead. I stepped outside, flashlight trembling. The derrick was moving. Not pumping, not creaking, breathing. Up and down, slow and rhythmic. And from its base, black oil oozed upward,
spreading through the cracks in the dirt, tracing a path toward my trailer. I called Eliza at dawn. She answered on the first ring. "You heard it, didn't you?" "What the hell is going on out here?" I snapped. She sighed. "That field was shut down for a reason. They drilled too deep, took more than they were owed." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Means they woke it up." "Woke what up?" "The shadow under the derrick. It's part of the land now, and if you've got something buried, it knows." She hung up before I could answer. I packed my bag that night, ready to leave. I didn't even care about the paycheck. But when I started the truck, the engine coughed and died. Black oil sprayed from the hood, hissing like steam. The smell filled the air. And then behind me, footsteps. Slow, wet, dragging. I turned the rearview mirror. He was there again. The oil-soaked silhouette, closer this time, standing right behind my truck. His head tilted sideways, and I swear I heard bones crack. Or maybe pipes. When he opened his mouth, it wasn't a mouth anymore. It was a hole, dark and endless, and from it came my own voice. "You buried it." I ran back to the trailer, locked the door, and waited for sunrise. The knocking started just before dawn. 3 knocks, slow, heavy, each one shaking the trailer like it might split in half. The smell was unbearable, metallic, sulfurous, wet. When I looked out the window, the ground around the derrick was rippling, like liquid under a skin of dirt. Something massive moved beneath it, and from the center of that slow-moving earth, the silhouette began to rise. Oil poured off its body like rain, its arms stretched out, fingers dripping black. It looked almost human, until it smiled. Its teeth weren't teeth anymore. They were drill bits. "The ground is hungry," it said again, my voice twisted and hollow. I screamed and ran for the back door, but when I opened it, the desert was gone. Only black, a sea of oil rising higher with every breath. When I woke up, it was daylight. The trailer was spotless. No smell, no footprints, no oil. For a moment I thought I'd dreamed it all. Then I looked down. My hands were black. The creases of my palms slick with something warm and wet. I scrubbed until my skin bled. The black stayed. I quit that morning. Drove until I ran out of gas near Pecos, sold the truck for cash, and kept walking. Now, no matter where I go, I smell it. Faint, oily, metallic. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I hear the ground breathing under me. And in every reflection, windows, mirrors, puddles, I see him standing behind me, waiting. I think he wants me to dig. Maybe for the money, maybe for what's left of me under that desert dirt. Whatever it is, the land remembers, and someday soon it's gonna collect. Because in West Texas, nothing stays buried. Not the oil, not the truth, not the dead.
I moved to the old general store by the Pecos River because I wanted to disappear. Not vanish, just fade out of the world quietly. After what I did, that felt fair. The place was a ruin when I bought it. Half the roof sagged, the wood soft from decades of heat. But it was cheap, remote, and quiet. The nearest neighbor was 10 miles away. The river, or what was left of it, cut behind the property like a scar. A cracked channel filled with weeds and ghost water. I told myself it was peaceful, until the river started calling back. It was late August, the kind of heat that made the air taste like dust. I just finished cleaning the back shelves when I heard it.
A thud. 3 dull, wet thuds from somewhere behind the building. I thought it was a loose shutter, or maybe a raccoon, but when I stepped outside, the air was still. The sound came again, slow, heavy, like oars knocking wood. But there was no water out there, not for miles. I went back inside and tried to laugh it off, but the old floorboards under me felt damp, as if something underneath was sweating through. That night, I dreamed of dark water lapping against wooden boards, and of a man standing in the fog, his eyes the color of river silt. A week later, an old man came by in a pickup, dusty hat pulled low. He said his name was Guillaume. "You're staying out here alone?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, "trying to start a small online shop, nothing big." He nodded, looking past me toward the riverbed. "This place used to be a ferry crossing before the river went dry." "I read something like that," I replied. Guillaume's face hardened. "That ferry took more than it should have. Storms, floods, people. It don't forgive easy." I smiled politely. "I'll keep that in mind." He tipped his hat. "Keep your door locked at night, miss. The river still needs its toll." Then he drove off. I wanted to think he was just being superstitious, but that night I heard it again, the sound of oars against wood. 3 slow, wet knocks echoing through the floor. The next morning, I found something on the counter. A smooth river stone, round, gray, damp. I hadn't brought it in. There were no footprints, no open windows, just that stone sitting perfectly centered, like it had been placed there with care. I tossed it outside and tried to forget about it. But that night, when I locked up, I heard the bell above the door ring softly, just once. No wind, no one outside. When I turned back to the counter, another stone was sitting there, identical. That was the first night I didn't sleep. I woke to a whisper at the window. The voice was low, muffled by glass, but I could make out the words, "Time to pay the river." When I pulled the curtain aside, I saw him, the man from my dreams. He stood waist-deep in what should have been dry land, his clothes dripping, eyes gray and empty. His skin was pale and bloated, his hair plastered to his face. In his hands, he held a long wooden pole. He didn't speak again, he just stared. When I blinked, he was gone. I called Guillaume the next morning, desperate to hear a rational voice. "You seen him?" he said. It wasn't a question. "What is he?" I whispered. "The ferryman. Been here since the river ran red. He don't stop collecting, even when there's no water left." "That's crazy." "Did you take something from the water once?" I froze. No, I lied. But the truth was, I had. Years ago, there'd been an accident. A storm, a highway slick with rain, headlights cutting through floodwater. I was driving. The other car went off the bridge. He didn't make it. No one ever found the body. I told the police it was a hit and run. Then I sold my car, moved away, changed my name. But the water remembered. And now, so did the river. When I came downstairs that night, the air was colder. On the counter, 3 stones sat by its side, slick and dark, like they'd just been pulled from the bottom of a river. I backed away, slowly. The light above the door flickered once. Then the oar sound started again. Thud, thud, thud. This time, it was right outside. The bell rang again. When I looked toward the door, I saw water trickling under it, black and slow, spreading across the floor like veins. Then the door handle began to turn. I ran upstairs and locked myself in the old storeroom. The sound of oars kept knocking against the walls, the ceiling, the floor, steady, patient, methodical. When the knocking stopped, I thought it was over. Then the whisper came through the air vent, soft and close to my ear. "You left me there." I screamed. By morning, the water was gone. The floor was dry. But my reflection in the window wasn't. The figure behind me, the ferryman, was dripping, his hand resting on my shoulder in the glass. When I turned, I was alone. The smell of the river hung in the air, rotten and sweet. I packed my bags, planning to leave before sunset, but when I opened the front door, the truck wouldn't start. The battery was dead. And on the hood sat another stone, this one carved with my name. That night I couldn't keep the lights on. They buzzed, dimmed, then died completely. The sound of oars came again, closer now. When I looked out the window, the ground was gone. The whole property was submerged under dark water, stretching endlessly into fog. And in the middle of that water, the ferryman stood, his pole planted deep in the unseen current. The boat beside him rocked gently, an empty wooden hull slick with algae. He didn't speak this time. He just lifted his hand and pointed at me. The whisper came from everywhere at once. "Time to cross." I backed away, shaking my head. "No, you're not real." But the floorboards beneath me were already wet. The smell of the river grew heavy. Mud, rot, and something human. The last thing I remember was the floor giving way under me, water filling my mouth, my nose, my lungs, and the sound of the oars. Thud, thud, thud. They found my truck a week later. Doors open, key still in the ignition, no footprints in the dust. Guillaume told the police I'd moved away. They believed him. But I didn't move. I can still see the store from the riverbank. The lights flicker every night, though no one's been inside for months. Sometimes travelers stop for gas nearby and say they hear knocking from the riverbed. Slow, rhythmic, like oars hitting wood. They say they see a woman standing in the shallows, face pale, eyes gray, lips moving with the current. I think she's waiting for someone, maybe for everyone, because the river still remembers its debts. And every stone it leaves behind is just a reminder, a toll waiting to be paid. So when you pass the Picos at night and you hear something knocking from under the bridge, don't stop. Don't look. And whatever you do, don't answer when the river calls your name.
I was Sawyer, 27, and the neon above the pumps on US 183 wouldn't stop flickering that night, bleeding red into the puddles like an open wound. I worked nights at a truck stop just outside Luling, Texas, a nowhere town with more dust than people. The kind of place where the coffee burns like tar and the air conditioner hums louder than conversation. That night, the sky was the color of old asphalt, heavy, low, mean. A thunderstorm was dragging its belly over the highway, and I could taste the metal in the air before it hit. Alma was counting the till when the first boom cracked across the sky. Luis was restocking the coolers, humming something off-key. I was behind the counter pretending to scroll through my phone, but really I was staring at a message I'd never send. To him, the man I'd lied to, cheated on, and left before he could leave me. I told myself the night shift was penance, that maybe if I stood still long enough, whatever followed me might just forget. Then the power went out. The hum died. The coolers went quiet. Even the highway, that constant animal growl, went still. Alma didn't move. She just looked at me, her old hands frozen over the register. "Don't answer it," she whispered. "Answer what?" I asked. Luis laughed nervously. "The breaker?" But Alma's eyes were locked on the glass doors facing the lot. She said, "The road, when it starts looking for company." I thought she was joking until we heard it. Soft at first, like something being dragged through mud. Then louder, a wet scraping sound sliding across the storefront windows. Luis stepped forward, flashlight shaking, probably a branch. But there weren't any trees near enough, only the pumps, the rain, and that godforsaken stretch of blacktop disappearing into nowhere. The dragging circled the building, slow and deliberate, like someone pacing the walls, knuckles raking the glass. It stopped right beside the door. 3 knocks. Hard, perfectly spaced. Alma's voice was a breath. "Don't you open it. Don't even speak." My heart was punching my ribs. "Is someone out there?" I whispered before I could stop myself. Her glare could have cut through stone. "It's not someone. It's what's left when someone answers." Luis swallowed. "You're telling me that—" The light sputtered once, twice, and died again. I could hear my pulse, and behind it, the scuffing sound moved to the side window near the coffee station. Something, no, someone, was breathing hard through the vent, wet and slow. Luis lost it. "I'm going out there!" Before Alma could stop him, he was halfway to the door. I screamed his name, but he didn't turn. The second he touched the handle, the air went still again. Then the sound came. A dull, meaty thud against the door, followed by that same dragging. Slower now, heavier, as if pulling something with it. Luis didn't come back. Alma was shaking. "It always takes one," she whispered. "It needs to be answered." I couldn't breathe. The storm was beating on the roof like fists. I ran, past the aisles, past the freezer, into the dark toward the employee exit. The metal door resisted, like something was leaning on it from the other side. I shoved harder until it gave way. Rain hit my face like needles. I sprinted for my car. The parking lot lights blinked on just long enough for me to see a trail. Dark streaks smeared across the concrete, leading from the glass doors to the edge of the highway. I didn't look back. I tore out of the lot, tires screaming, windshield wipers useless against the downpour. I kept telling myself I'd hit the next town and call the cops, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. When I reached for the radio, something knocked 3 times from the back seat. I almost veered off the road. I turned, heart stuttering. Nothing. Empty seat. But the air smelled wrong, like diesel and rot. The rearview mirror trembled, and then I saw it. A shape slumped in the passenger seat. A void wearing a trucker's hat.
Its grin stretched too wide, teeth small and endless, wet and shining. The thing didn't move, just stared at the windshield like it was waiting for me to speak. I couldn't scream, I couldn't breathe. I drove until the sky began to pale at the edges. By the time I dared to look again, the seat was empty. I pulled into a diner outside San Marcos, stumbled into the restroom, and threw up. When I came back out, a man in a trucker's jacket was at the counter. He was smiling at the waitress, too wide, too still. His boots left wet prints on the tile. He turned just slightly and lifted a hand. 3 fingers tapped the counter. Tap, tap, tap. I left before the coffee even poured. That was 2 years ago. I've moved 4 times since then, changed jobs, states, phones, everything. But every few nights, when the world goes quiet, I hear it again. 3 knocks. On the headboard, on the window, sometimes from the trunk of my car. I never answer. But last week, I saw a man at the gas station. Same hat, same grin. He was filling up an empty rig, though the engine wasn't running. When he looked at me, the air in my chest froze. He lifted his hand and mimed a gentle knock on an invisible door 3 times. Then he tipped his hat and walked toward the highway. The road roared louder than before, like it was breathing. I don't drive nights anymore. I don't even sleep most nights. Because when the knocking comes, it's never random. It's patient. Always 3. Always waiting.
I thought moving to my grandmother's ranch outside Marfa, Texas would save me. After the divorce, after the lies, after the money I told myself I deserved, I thought the silence of the desert would scrub me clean. The place had always felt like a ghost of something older than people, a stretch of land too wide for forgiveness. The road to the ranch was a thin, cracked scar winding through endless dirt and sage. Nothing out there but power poles, wind, and the distant hum of heat. The mailbox was the same rusted thing I remembered as a kid, my name barely visible beneath the peeling paint. Claire. Or at least that's what I thought it said. When I got close, it looked like the letters had rearranged themselves. Claire. I told myself it was the sun messing with my head. The house was still standing somehow. The porch leaned, the windows sagged under decades of dust. One side, the air smelled of dry cedar and something older, like scorched earth after rain that never came. Mrs. Alvarez, the neighbor who lived half a mile down, came by that evening. She brought cornbread wrapped in a towel and a jar of what she called blessing water. Her face looked carved from sun and stone. "You keep the crosses up," she said, glancing around at the walls. "Every window, every door." Your abuela knew what she was doing. I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. "I'll try not to let the demons in." She didn't laugh back. "They're not to keep things out, child. They're to hold the ground down.
This land takes what you bury. Remember that. That night, the desert felt louder than it should have. Crickets swallowed by silence, the air buzzing like a live wire. I lay in bed listening to the wind scrape the windows, and underneath it, something else. A faint, hollow knocking from the floorboards. 3 times. I told myself it was pipes or maybe an animal nesting under the house, but the ranch had no running water anymore, and no one had been under there in years. The next morning, I found the kitchen window wide open. Dust had blown in, coating the counter, the salt shaker, the bread Mrs. Alvarez brought. My car keys were gone. I found them outside, half buried in the dry earth under the window. By the 3rd night, the knocking came again. Louder now, slower, like someone striking the limestone foundation with their fist. 3. Always 3. I tried to drown it out with music, but the radio only hissed. The static seemed to move with the knocking, pulsing like it was alive. Around midnight, I heard something new. A whisper that crawled up through the cracks in the floorboards. At first, it sounded like wind. Then it shaped itself into words. Claire, let me up. I froze. The voice was dry and broken, like sand grinding between teeth. I whispered back, without meaning to, "Who are you?" The house sighed, a long, low creak that came from every wall at once. The whisper rose again. "You let me speak. Now let me up." I bolted for the door. The handle burned cold under my palm. When I stepped outside, the desert was still. No wind, no crickets, just silence stretching forever. The stars looked too close, too bright, like they were watching. At dawn, I drove into town, hands trembling on the steering wheel. I told myself I'd find a motel and leave the ranch to rot. But when I stopped at the old diner, Mrs. Alvarez was already sitting at a corner booth, like she'd been waiting. "You heard it, didn't you?" she said softly. I didn't answer. Her eyes glistened, tired and knowing. "Once you speak to it, it knows you. You gave it your name." "That wasn't—" I stopped. "That wasn't me." "It doesn't matter," she said. "It doesn't care who you are, only what you buried." I thought she meant metaphorically, until she slid something across the table. An old Polaroid she must have found in the county archives. It showed my grandmother's ranch. Decades ago, men in dusty overalls, a wooden cross planted in the soil, and beside it, carved crudely into the beam, Claire. "Your grandmother didn't build that house over clean ground," she said. "Something was already there." That night I checked into a cheap roadside motel. Cracked stucco walls, flickering sign, carpet that smelled of smoke. I tried to shower the dust off, but the water came out brown for the first few seconds. It smelled like rust. I turned the TV on for noise, some late-night preacher droning about confession and redemption. Then the static cut him off, and through it came the voice. "You left it there." I turned the volume down. The voice grew louder. "You buried it deep." My blood went cold. I'd buried more than memories in that desert. When my marriage was dying, I drained our savings account, told him it was gone in taxes. The cash, 20 grand, I'd hidden in a tin box under that house years ago. The voice hissed through the speakers, dry and heavy. "Let me up." The walls groaned. The floor bulged once like something pushing from beneath. I ran to the car barefoot, clutching my keys. But when I tried to start the engine, the radio turned on itself. No power, no ignition, and whispered, "Claire knows you now." I didn't sleep. I drove until the sun came up, until I hit a gas station 50 miles out. The attendant looked at me like I'd crawled out of a grave. He's asked right casually, "Ranch outside Marfa, you say?" "Yeah," I said, my voice shaking. He nodded slowly. "You smell like it." "Like what?" "Like the ground there. It remembers everything it's fed." I left without paying. For days I kept moving, cheap motels, rest stops, sleeping in the car. But the knocking followed. In the pipes, the vents,
sometimes in the walls. Always 3 knocks. One night I stopped at another motel, this one worse than the last. Paint peeling, mirror cracked, desert wind moaning through gaps in the door. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, telling myself it couldn't find me this far from home. Then the floor swelled again, a slow, pulsing heave beneath the carpet. The mirror across the room fogged over, though the air was bone dry. The voice rose from the bulging floor. "You let me speak. Now let me up." I whispered, "What do you want from me?" The answer came from the mirror, my reflection's mouth moving half a second behind my own. "To finish what you buried." The glass cracked down the middle. Dust poured from the split like blood from a wound. I screamed and stumbled backward, grabbing my bag. The carpet beneath my feet moved, rippling, and a smell like drought and decay filled the room. Dead cattle, scorched dirt, and old lies. I ran, out the door, down the lot, into my car. Behind me, the motel lights flickered in rhythm. 3 blinks, pause, 3 again. I drove until dawn. Didn't matter where, as long as it wasn't there. Now I don't stay anywhere for more than a few nights. I sleep with the TV on and the window sealed. I keep moving because stopping feels like giving it ground. Sometimes when the desert wind shifts just right, I swear I hear the faintest knock. Through the air vents of my car, through the hum of the tires, under my breath when I pray. 3 knocks. It doesn't want forgiveness. It wants recognition. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I can see it, rising from the sand in the dark, a woman-shaped silhouette made of cracked earth and bone dust, her mouth split wide, whispering my name. Not Claire, Claire. She wants to come up. And maybe she will, because every lie I buried out there was a seed, and now the desert wants its harvest.
There's a 20-mile stretch of I-35 between Austin and San Antonio where the road forgets itself. No curves, no exits, just asphalt that never ends. I used to drive it every week, music loud, window down, mind busy enough not to think about what I'd done. The first time it happened, I was heading south at 2 a.m., alone. My name's Marco, and I've been hearing my own voice on the radio ever since. A year ago, I recorded my best friend without his consent. We were drunk, angry, shouting about a girl who'd left us both bleeding in different ways. I wanted to prove he was lying, that he'd said something cruel. So I hit record. Then I leaked it. 1 clip, 10 seconds, out of context. He lost his job, his family stopped speaking to him, and a week later, he stopped answering my calls. The guilt came like a hangover that never faded. So I drove. Driving was easier than remembering. The radio started cutting out around mile marker 150. Static hissed between songs, sharp and rhythmic, like breath through teeth. I turned the dial. Every station was the same. Then the static shifted. It wasn't noise anymore. It was words. My own voice. "You don't know what you've done." I slammed the radio off. The silence that followed was worse. In my side mirror, a flicker of light, like headlights, blinked once, then vanished. The road ahead was empty. A few miles later, something moved in the median. Fast, low, and wrong. When I turned my head, it was gone. Then again, a blur in my peripheral vision, a human shape running beside the car, keeping pace. The voice on the radio came back, whispering through static. My friend's voice this time. "Why did you do it, Marco?" The temperature gauge spiked. The car filled with the smell of hot metal and ozone. I pulled to the shoulder, shaking, trying to breathe. The asphalt hissed under my tires like something alive. When I stepped out, the night was too quiet. Then I heard it, from across the median. Footsteps. Slow, wet, I shined my flashlight. Nothing there. Just the faint shimmer of heat off the road. And then, in the dark, a voice. "You're still recording?" I dropped the flashlight. When I picked it up again, the road was empty. But my phone, sitting on the dashboard, was recording. Timer still running. I drove fast after that. 90, then 100. I just wanted to reach San Antonio and forget this whole thing. But after 20 minutes, I passed mile marker 150 again. The same sign, the same dent in the guardrail. I thought maybe I'd missed an exit, circled somehow. But there are no loops on I-35. It's a straight shot. I tried calling for help. No signal. The GPS flickered, then froze. Only one word glowed on the screen. Loop. At mile marker 160, I saw headlights up ahead, dozens of them, idling in the dark. I slowed down. Every car was empty, engines running. Headlights pointed towards the median. When I passed the first one, I saw the driver's door hanging open. A phone sat on the seat, screen lit. Recording. The next car, same thing. The third, too. Every single phone was recording silence. And in that silence, I could hear faint echoes, distorted whispers of voices, overlapping, crying, confessing. Then the static in my own car grew louder. "You did this," my friend's voice said. "You made them listen." The air thickened, my ears ringing. When I looked at the road ahead, the median flickered like heat waves or a mirage. In that shimmer, something moved. A figure, running, full tilt, down the center line. Too fast, too wrong. And as I passed, my headlights caught a face. My friend's face. Eyes wide, mouth open, skin burned by static. Then the lights went out. When they came back on, I was alone again. The radio dial turned itself. The song that came through was distorted but familiar. Our song, the one that played in the background of that leaked recording. Only now the lyrics were gone. Just static. And under it, screaming. My name. Over and over. Marco. 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 I punched the power button. The radio stayed on. The voice lowered to a whisper. "You can't leave yet." The clock read 3 a.m. I drove another few miles before realizing that I'd been passing the same green mile marker for nearly an hour, 183. Every time I blinked, it reappeared. My reflection in the mirror looked strange now. Too still. When I glanced back at the road, I saw something standing exactly in the middle of the lanes. A figure, gray and flickering, like an image half-formed. I swerved hard, tires screaming. The figure was gone. Then the radio spoke again, whispering in my own voice. "You should have kept your mouth shut." I tried to turn around, but both directions looked the same. Flat, dark, endless. When I put the car in reverse, the GPS blinked again. Mile 183. Still. Always. I looked at my phone. It was recording again. Timer counting up, though I hadn't touched it. I played the clip. First, silence. Then the sound of my own breathing. Then my friend's voice. "I trusted you, man." Then screaming. The same scream from the radio. The recording ended with 3 sharp knocks against something hollow, like someone rapping on a car window. I froze. Then knock, knock, knock on my own driver's side glass. I turned my head. Standing outside, inches from the glass, was a man-shaped blur, vibrating like a signal out of range. His face flickered in and out of focus, but I knew it. Same eyes. Same jaw. My friend. His voice came through the static of the radio even though it was off. He said, "You broadcast my death. Now you'll play it forever." He pressed his palm against the glass. It left a black, tar-like print. I screamed, floored the gas, and tore down the highway. But no matter how fast I went, the radio kept whispering. And every time I passed another car, I saw my own face behind the wheel. Another me, driving in circles, radio hissing, eyes wide. I don't know how long I've been on this stretch. The sun never comes up. My gas gauge hasn't moved. Every few miles, I see the same cars, the same phones recording silence. Sometimes I hear my friends laugh in the static. Not cruel, just sad. He says, "You had to be heard, so now you are." And when I pass mile marker 183 again, which I always do, I see him standing on the median, one hand raised, palm blackened, smiling, that same quiet smile. The radio plays what sounds like an echo, my own voice, looping endlessly. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." But no matter how many times I say it, the road doesn't change. It just stretches out forever, black and smooth, feeding the echo forward. And I keep driving, recording, listening. Because that's what I did. I recorded what shouldn't have been heard. And now the highway records me. Every confession, every mile, every scream. The median ghost keeps his toll. Voices, not lives. And mine is still playing. Somewhere in the static.